What's up, my friends? My name is Keilan Morrissey. You're watching Keeping It Keilan. It's been a while. So the last time I filmed an episode of Keeping It Keilan, I was back at my apartment with my friend Noah, and my hair also would have gone down out of this screen. So a lot has changed. I cut my hair, moved back into my house just for the summer, and I haven't really been doing videos like this. Oh, just hit my arm on the chair there. Haven't really been doing videos like this, in pretty much all of June. So I'm trying to get back in the groove of doing some talking videos, sharing with you guys my thoughts on the world, on my creative endeavors, all that kind of thing. And today I'm going to go ahead and get right into our topic. I am reflecting on the last year of books I've read and classes I've taken, and I'm going to share with you one key takeaway from each book and class I've completed. So about a year ago, when I first started making videos like this, when I first started pursuing social media as like a career, as a means of personal branding to promote my own art, I set out to also learn along the way. That was also a big condition of my parents. With them supporting me and helping me with my apartment, they wanted me to not just be making art, but also be learning about the industry, learning about the crafts. Just, since I wasn't doing full-time college, I was doing part-time college, I had to supplement that with more learning. And so I did, and I made myself a reading list and a class list. So I'm going to share what I learned from each of those. And hopefully I'll be able to give you this condensed base of knowledge that I gained from the last year so that you don't necessarily have to read or watch quite as much as I did to get these really cool takeaways. All right, enough setup. Let's get into it. Making and Breaking the Rules was a class I took at School of the Art Institute of Chicago. As you can guess by the name of the class, it was definitely up my alley. Very fun, very non-traditional. And Miki Yamamoto was the amazing teacher of that class. And here's my my short summary of what I learned. Happiness always comes first. We should prioritize our mental health in all areas of life and take the time to check on one another regularly. Our relationships with other humans impact our happiness more than anything else. So that is what I learned from that class. It was technically a writing class, but it was actually more so a mental health class. And yeah, I mean, any class that gets across a message like that, I think is really cool. Intro to Writing as Art. This is another class I took at SAIC, and my takeaway was there is a powerful relationship between the art of writing and languages around the world. Writing is a means of keeping certain languages alive. So that is something that we pretty much learned the first day of class, but it was really reinforced throughout the course that writing isn't just I always view writing as just a means of keeping stories alive. It's also a means of keeping languages alive. It's also a means of carrying on cultures. And I think that's something that I never considered because I was raised an English speaker. I took English classes at school, and whenever I did foreign language classes, there was never any creative writing. So I never thought of it as a means of actually carrying on a language. So I think that's really cool. Now here's a fun one. I took the Art of Magic Masterclass taught by Penn and Teller. So here's my takeaway. Some basic principles of magic can be used in increasingly complex ways with different items. Understanding the fundamental sleight of hand tricks allows you to develop a unique act with whatever items, clever stories, and fun distractions you please. So, magic, people think that maybe certain tricks, like a card trick or a trick with rings or a trick with fire, that they might be completely different, when in actuality it is the same principles, the same basic maneuvers that allow them to happen. It's really the items you use, the distractions you use, and the story you layer on that allows you to make a magic act unique. I have no interest in becoming a magician. Well, that's a lie. I have no interest in only being a magician. One day that'd be cool to be a magician. I've always thought that's a little that'd be a really awesome career, but I'm not pursuing it professionally right now. But I still wanted to take that class because, who doesn't love magic? Come on. Reading and Writing Poetry, a masterclass by Billy Collins. So here's my takeaway. Poems are a record of the human soul. They can be structured in infinite ways. Literary devices add extra flavor. Form and layout creates a nice packaging for the poem. Rhyme and meter are optional ways to make the poem a bit more musical, and it is also the only form of writing that is conscious of the page itself. So, to shorten that even more, as I've kind of been doing here, basically, a poem can be literally anything you want it to be, right? Like, it doesn't have to rhyme, it doesn't have to have a meter, it doesn't have to have a certain number of syllables per line, it doesn't. I think in school you're kind of taught that true poetry is this or that. You know, it doesn't have to be a Shakespearean sonnet. You can make it as abstract as you want, but you don't want it to be meaningless. What's more important is the story of the poem, the emotion of the poem. But you add those extra stuff. You add that extra stuff if you want to. If you want it to have a certain quality or feel, or if you want it to be read in a certain way, then you add that. But ultimately, poetry is a very liberating and freeing form of writing. You can make a poem however you want. And it's cool because it is aware of the page. It's aware of the space it takes up on the page. So that's really fun to play with. The Art of Storytelling Masterclass by Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite writers of all time. There is no rule book for great writing. An author learns by simply writing. For many years, you will imitate writers you admire, and eventually your original voice will emerge. Also, the more life experiences you have, the more emotions, memories, and characters you will collect, all of which will come in handy when writing. So basically, to summarize that one, just live and write. That's the message. That's what Neil got across to me. Just live, collect memories, collect feelings, put it in your writing. Just keep writing. You'll get better. You'll find your style. Now, Samuel L. Jackson's acting masterclass. He is a cool guy and a cool teacher. When assigned a character, pull from your own experiences and develop their intricacies. Use your body, use your hair, your posture, your clothes, your expression to transform yourself into the character. And always understand the mindset of the character in any given scene, even if you're not the main focus. So an example he used a lot in his masterclass was the film, I think it was called A Caveman's Valentine, which I have not seen the film, but a lot of the clips he showed, I mean, you know, you wouldn't think it was Samuel L. Jackson just based on the way he behaves, the way he acts, what he's done to his body, and the way he moves. Like, that's really cool acting. And not all acting has to be that transformative. Like, I do lots of acting where I'm basically just playing myself, and that works really well for certain films, but it's also really cool when you're tasked with this character that's nothing like you, and you can use your natural attributes and change them in certain ways temporarily to embody a certain character. And you just like writing, you pull from your experiences, you pull from what you know to make it feel more real. Filmmaking Masterclass by Martin Scorsese. Understand the origins of cinema and cinematic traits like sound and color, but also understand the progressive direction cinema is taking. Respect the past and change with the times. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. James Patterson's Writing Masterclass. James Patterson has been an inspiration of mine since I was very young. I read his books for younger audiences, and I was aware that a lot of people in my family read his books, so it was cool actually hearing from him directly. Research and outline your book ahead of time. Your outline will change as you go, but have a roadmap. And when it comes to the book's ending, choose the most utterly outrageous ending possible, as long as it makes sense. So, you know, I think the roadmap, the storyboarding aspect of that is terrific advice. I just finished storyboarding my novel Skyburn about a month ago, and I'm going to start writing it most likely this summer. I have some other writing projects I'm working on, but Skyburn, I'm getting to it soon. I know I've been putting it off for years, but now I have such a thorough and concrete storyboard that I feel really passionate about it, and I'm ready to start writing anytime now. And James Patterson definitely inspired me to make such a concrete storyboard that outlines exactly what's going to happen, exactly how the characters are going to grow, and, you know, knowing what happens in the third act helps you write the first act, like always. So yeah, that's great advice. The ending advice is super interesting. I think it works in a lot of instances. I can think of some instances where it wouldn't work. You don't always want an outrageous ending for a book. Like, I suppose if it's a self-contained story and you and the message of the story relies on things coming together smoothly and cleanly, you don't need an outrageous ending. But in his line of writing, and sort of in my line of writing, where you want to continue the story probably in future books, and you want to break the mold of the traditional novel, and where it all just comes to a nice clean end, where you want to kind of shake things up, then and you know, you want your readers coming back, you want their minds blown, and you want them reading the next thing, then yeah, pick a crazy ending. Okay, so I took 2 more classes at SAIC. First one was eco poetry. Here's my takeaway. Seeing the work of other poets is a great way to observe new techniques and styles. It can be difficult to develop a unique poetic style, since poetry is so abstract and unbound by rules. So being in a poetic community is very valuable. That's what I learned. To be honest, we weren't taught that many specific poetic techniques. We were more so just exposed to the poetic styles of other people, other students. And that was cool. Like it put a lot into perspective for me. I just finished writing my book I published my book last year. I didn't just finish writing it, but I was sort of fresh off of the confidence of having written this poetry book. And then I realized, like, oh shoot, these people can write just as well as me, if not better. Like, a lot of them could write better than me, to be honest. Poetry, like, I think a lot of them, poetry is their main field of interest. Like, some of those people went to school to be a poet. So I'm like, dang, these people are talented. They write some good stuff. And that inspired me. Like, you know, it didn't just, it's not like it was just a blow to my confidence. Like, oh shoot, I'm not that good. You know, although some days I did feel like that a little bit. But it was kind of like, okay, there's all these different styles that exist and all these different routes I could take my future poetry that I wasn't even thinking of when I was just isolated in my room writing. You know, it's really cool to be exposed to alternate ways of doing things. The other class I took at SAIC was Women Writers' Worlds. There is a wide range of female authors from across the world who influenced the literary canon in vastly different ways. Understanding this history can empower and inspire all kinds of writers in the present. I think that's another pretty self-explanatory one. That was a terrific class. And my last class that I took, another masterclass, was Jimmy Chin's adventure photography class. So different gear will create different visual aesthetics. Be aware of the look you can achieve with certain cameras and lenses, and use that knowledge to efficiently capture what you need. So that's especially great advice for me, since I do so much like travel adventure vlogging. Sometimes I feel confined, like, okay, since I normally film on GoPro, I have to always film on GoPro. But, I mean, this new iPhone, this one, man, the 12 Pro, I think it is. I just got this for my birthday, by the way. This camera's crazy. Like, since when were iPhone cameras this amazing? Like, seriously, this is not a paid endorsement. Like, there's some stuff that this iPhone can do better than the GoPro can do. There's some stuff this iPhone can do better than this camera can do, but not everything, right? The GoPro is great for stable shots. The camera is great for depth of field. There's different benefits to different cameras. So when you're going on an adventure, think about what you're going to be filming. Are you filming bees? Do you just need a macro lens to focus on the bees? Are you filming massive landscapes? Is there someone filming you, or are you doing the filming? This all will help determine what lenses you bring, what equipment you bring, what camera you bring. So be aware of that and pack accordingly. All right, now for the books. Now for these, I think I won't embellish. I won't share quite as many details as I did with the classes. Let's just get through the books here. The DC Comics Guide to Writing Comics by Dennis O'Neil. Here's my takeaway. Craft your scripts with the reader closely in mind. Bring them along for a ride and be aware of the pacing of humor, action, and drama in your story. All right. Making Comics by Scott Macleod. Comic book writing is an incredibly nuanced art form, just like filmmaking. Learn the techniques and be sure to consider all the possible creative options while writing a script. So those are 2 comic book books that I read. They're really good, really good. Highly recommend. Art Matters by Neil Gaiman, my dude. Tell the stories you want to tell in the way you want to tell them. Your words can make a difference in the world. That one is much less practical, just more fun. It's a lot of just quotes and art. So, It's All in Your Head by Russ. Be proud of your accomplishments. Never be realistic. Manifest your dreams and understand that countless failures may come before your first success. But you learn from each of those failures. Words for Pictures by Brian Michael Bendis. This is the other comic book related book that I read. Write often. Write more scripts, books, and stories than your audience will ever read. Write because you love it and learn the business of whichever industry you want to write in. So yeah, Bendis is very much of the mindset like a writer should just always be writing and they should feel this innate passion to write, which I think, that's up for debate. Like a lot of great writers suffer from writer's block 80% of the time, but during that 20% of the time they make gold, so it definitely depends on the writer, but I see where he's coming from there. I really do. And that's a great book. On Writing by Stephen King. Read constantly. Allow yourself to be influenced and inspired by other writers, but find your own style. Nice and simple. He definitely recommends reading a lot, which is something I'm definitely trying to get better at every month. I'm trying to read more. Save the Cats by Blake Snyder. All effective screenplays follow a structure. Any film can be broken down into pieces and parts. While some films choose to be experimental, mainstream movies should follow a basic blueprint in order to have a compelling story. So I'll admit, when I was reading that one, I felt like challenging that. I always hate the idea of, this art form has to have a blueprint. This art form has to be done this way. I like to shake it up. I like to change things. But he made some great points. Like there are some pretty basic things that I think have to be agreed upon. Kind of like in a story, you cannot have a story without a conflict, right? If there's no conflict of any kind, whether that conflict is internal, external, whatever it is, you have to have a conflict. Otherwise, it's not a story. You're just stating events, basically. I think that's like a rule. Now that I say that, I'm starting to challenge it in my head, but I'm pretty certain a conflict is a vital ingredient in a story. I mean, I certainly don't write stories without a conflict. All right, Tough Shit by Kevin Smith. The entertainment industry is absolutely crazy and unpredictable. Put out entertaining content that is true to yourself. Make as many connections as possible, and do not allow others to label your art. That was a great book. He's hilarious and awesome. The Actor's Life by Jenna Fisher. Acting is an incredibly selective industry. Many actors, even the most successful, still struggle to land roles and maintain a stable income. I learned that from Samuel L. Jackson too. Only do it if you are passionate about acting for a living. In other words, what I learned from that book is I will happily act if I ever get the opportunity, but I'm not going to devote my life just to the acting industry because it is so selective and so difficult, and I want to pursue other creative endeavors, and being an actor would not grant me the time to do that. All right, last one, Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk, possibly the most important book I've read this year. Use one social media platform for your pillar content, that's you guys, YouTube, and create unique micro content for every other platform. Do not completely tie yourself to one platform. Create a brand across all of social media. So that is what I learned from that book. And that is why I am pursuing my personal branding across 4 or 5 different platforms currently, as opposed to just one. Before I read that book, I had actually quit Instagram because of digital addiction and all that. And now I'm trying to manage digital addiction, which is a very real thing. And I've done videos on that too, by only using social media for personal branding, only using it to get my art out there. Personal branding, by the way, it's one of those words, kind of like content, that it's so generic and it doesn't sound that artistic. I don't love using it, but I know it's like the professional term for it. But basically, I use social media nowadays. I try to avoid the endless scrolling, and I try to just use it as a means to get out my art. I think that's what's so powerful about it. And being able to build an audience across platforms, that's super powerful. That's super cool. So now I have content on Instagram that's not anywhere else. I have content on TikTok that's not anywhere else. Vero, Twitter, Keilan.com, YouTube. Each of these things have exclusive content to that platform. It's not all about having a uniform catalog. It's okay to scatter it around. It's okay to spread your storytelling your brand across all these platforms, which is what I've been doing. Whew, so there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Keeping It Keilan and all the takeaways I learned from the last year. I think it's been a very, very transformative year for me. And now the next year of my life is, without a doubt, it's going to be full of even more learning and even more stories. So stay tuned. Lots more art to come. Lots more awesomeness. Follow me on all those socials I just mentioned. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.